But once the relationship starts becoming very real and it starts putting some demands on them, like any other relationship, fear starts speaking loudly. They start asking themselves, what if I disappoint this person? What if I become too dependable on them? What if they replace me? What if whatever I share with them, they use it against me? And so it becomes a situation where the employees are left to start wondering and reading the mood of this leader, because they really don't know where they stand. Today they are favoring you, but the minute they see this favor is doing an amazing thing in your life, they are quick to shut the door for you. And so you're always in a conflicted relationship with them as a subordinate, because you really don't know where you stand with them on a day-to-day. Be that confident that people can actually trust with very pertinent information that may affect them negatively in terms of their reputation or their status within that organization.
There are multiple worldviews you hold, whether you're aware of them or not. Otherwise, start seeing the world the way God sees it. There's something honorable about work that God sees.
There's nothing as good as seeing people's lives changing. Recovery has been a gift. It's a gift that you have to give. If you don't give, you lose it. Nothing comes before my recovery apart from God.
You can tell it's not just values he has beliefs and he has conviction, and he's willing to die for his conviction.
You need to have that relationship where the Lord can cultivate that character in you. That fruit of godly character can only come from people who are connected to God, people who have a relationship with God. God does not want us to know that which is good. God wants us to know that which is God.
Hi, you. Welcome to the Purpose Exchange podcast. In our previous episodes, we've looked at different attachment styles. We've looked at the anxious attachment style. We've also looked at the avoidant attachment style. So today we want to look at yet another attachment style, the fearful-avoidant attachment style. And this is an insecure attachment pattern in which a person desires connection, but they also feel unsafe depending on other people. This attachment style is quite interesting because it combines the anxious side and the avoidant side. The anxious side is the one that is so scared of losing connection. And so their internal framework sounds like, I don't want to lose you. But the avoidant style in them tells them that I don't want you to come too close because I'm scared that you will disappoint me or hurt me. And so there's a consistent internal conflict of two very strong desires where this person wants connection, but they're scared the emotional labor that comes with that connection. They want a sense of belonging, but they don't trust people to not disappoint them. They want visibility, but when the visibility comes, they are feeling very exposed. And so they might look like people who really don't want to connect with people, but that's not true. The overriding fear that carries them is that there really can't be a way that they can trust people. And this connection or this attachment style forms at a young age, like any other attachment style, where the relationships they had with their parents or their caregivers taught them that connections can be a source of belonging, a source of safety, but they can also be a source of disappointment, a source of danger. And so there was a lot of instability within the dynamic they grew up in, where people could not be trusted because the same people who offer comfort are the same people who hurt or damage or are inconsistent with them. There's a lot of instability in that people can really not be trusted. The world is not safe, but yet there's an innate desire to be part of something where they can feel secure. And so these conflicting needs make them present sometimes very aloof or sometimes very detached, but that is not what is happening internally. And so we want to see how this dynamic plays out in yet the work environment, because this is an environment in which they are connecting with other people, they're interacting with their peers, with their colleagues, with suppliers, with their bosses, and where there is a relationship to be managed or to be formed, the attachment dynamic will show up. So we want to start looking at how it looks like for an employee and how it looks like for a leader. So when we look at a fearful employee, it usually starts with desire. This is someone who desires to have a sense of belonging. They desire to be part of the group. They desire to share ideas. They will initially connect strongly either to their bosses or to their colleagues or to their peers. They offer loyalty, and they also emotionally invest in the relationships. But once the relationship starts becoming very real and it starts putting some demands on them, like any other relationship, fear starts speaking loudly. They start asking themselves, what if I disappoint this person? What if I become too dependable on them? What if they replace me? What if whatever I share with them, they use it against me? And so once this fear starts speaking, they start distancing themselves. They start withdrawing. They start pulling back. They're not as engaged as they have been. You'll notice patterns where they're not being loyal, or they're not offering loyalty. They're not offering ideas. They're not collaborating. And it's not because you've done anything wrong, but for them, now this fear has become too real for them, and it starts overriding the connection and the desire they have for belonging and the investments they have made into the relationships that they're trying to build there. So we want to look at how this emotionally shows up in the workplace, whether they are dealing with other employees or whether they're dealing with their colleagues or their bosses or any other person that they're relating with in the context of the workspace. So the first way it shows up is they will seek mentorship and then start resisting influence. So this is a type of employee that will pursue mentorship. They will pursue visibility. They'll want guidance. But once their bosses start providing that supportive guidance, it could look like corrective measures. It can look like providing opportunities for them to develop. Once the leader starts investing deeply in their professional development within that organization, guess what happens to that employee? They start withdrawing, because this influence, this mentorship that they had desired initially starts to feel like control. And so they start asking themselves, what if I start sharing something that this person is going to use against me? Maybe the more we are connecting, the more they're going to start perceiving me in a negative light. Maybe they'll start seeing that I am not competent. And so this fear starts overriding that which they desired initially, which is support. And they start, dismissing the support that they're getting. They start becoming passive aggressive, or they just withdraw and emotionally detach completely. And it can become a very confusing state for the leader. The second thing is that they share and then they withdraw. And so they might be struggling, or they might be having a personal professional challenge, and they will go to their boss looking for guidance, looking for help, looking for reprieve. But then after sharing what they're going through, they'll go back and start wondering, did I overshare? Will what I have shared be used against me? And so when the boss is running around, maybe getting mental help or getting resources from the HR or the network or wherever it is, and they start amplifying their efforts to help you get along with this challenge that you have presented, they start feeling vulnerable. The fear now starts telling them that, oh, I'm going to be visible. They start feeling a sense of shame because they opened their inner world to somebody, and they don't trust that this somebody is trustworthy enough to sort of like preserve their image, preserve their dignity, preserve their integrity. And it's the same even with visibility. This will be the employee that is always complaining that nobody sees and appreciates their work. And so they might complain it verbally, they might tell it to a colleague, and when it gets to the boss and the boss gives them an assignment that has visibility all over it, they start cowering. They don't want to now do the assignment because now they start fearing that there's a possibility of failure. There's a possibility that people will perceive them as not competent enough. They have desired this visibility. They have desired this support. But the minute this visibility and support shows up, they reject it. They really morifa. They run away because for them, there's a vulnerability there that they don't know how to handle, and they don't know how to expose, and they don't have the capacity, or they have not built the capacity to ensure that they can trust the people they're sharing with this information, and that it will not be used negatively. And in case it's used negatively, they have not built that capacity to know that they can ride through that situation and it will not be total collapse for them. The other way it shows up is testing relationships. So this is the type of person who, instead of directly asking where they stand in that relationship, they'll start testing it. And so you'll find them having tendencies where they withdraw to see if the person is going to pursue them. They are going to withdraw information to see if you're going to chase them and keep asking questions so that you can get the information. They will start testing your loyalty. They start testing how you perceive them. Instead of just coming directly and saying, this is how I feel. This is what I'm noticing. Where do we stand? Because they're so scared of being vulnerable and the fear is speaking. They start putting out metrics and putting loops for you to jump so that they can be assured that this is somebody that I can actually walk this organization with without feeling very exposed. And so it can be a very toxic dynamic because you never know where you are with them, because today they like you, tomorrow they don't like you. And you're always in a constant situation where you're trying to figure out, what did they do? What did I actually do to them? Because today they're warm, tomorrow they're cold. Today they're sharing information, the next day they're not sharing information. It's sort of like this mood thing that is happening with them, and every day you have to keep testing the waters, and it's not comfortable for anyone. But the more you understand this person, the more you're able to engage with them in a way that doesn't compromise yourself, or you start interpreting their behavior in a lens where you're personalizing it to yourself. The final way in which also their behavior shows up is alternating between idealization and suspicion. So a manager that they really got along with might be described as, this is the best manager, this is the one who's the most competent, he really gets me, she really gets me. And then once they face disappointment with this manager, it quickly becomes, I can never trust them. And so they have a very difficult time holding two balanced truths together, in that they are good, this manager is good, but then they also disappointed me, and it's not the end of my world, that they're just having a human experience. And so their mood really quickly shifts quickly to, today I really like you, tomorrow you're the worst thing that ever happened to me. Today you're the most supportive, tomorrow I cannot collaborate with you because you don't know what you're doing. And so they're always on the end of each spectrum, and they don't know how to have a balanced view or a balanced perspective towards the situation that they are facing, that can give an aspect of truth instead of a narration that continues to feed into this insecure attachment that they have. And I'd like us to look at a biblical example of Peter. Now, we can't diagnose biblical characters, but we can look at their life and observe if the patterns that we are seeing ascribe to what we are discussing. And so if you look at the story of Peter, Peter was a disciple of Jesus. Let's first start there for those who don't know. And as a disciple of Jesus, we see an interesting tension in his life where he valued connection, but also when this connection was risky to him, he was the first one to run away from that connection. So in Matthew 26, verse 33, Peter declares, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. He wants to remain very close, and he was deeply connected to Jesus. He identifies himself as loyal. But later on, in verse 74 of the same chapter, it records Peter saying, I don't know that man. And he said this when he was being asked, aren't you the disciple of Christ, when Christ had already been arrested? But when this association with Christ became risky to his personhood, he was quickly to abandon that connection. And that is a classic example of how a fearful avoidant behaves, in that they really value the connection. They want to be connected. But when this connection becomes risky, it can be risky to their image, it can be risky to their influence, it can be risky to their status, it can be risky to their sense of belonging. Essentially, it is being registered by their nervous system as a threat. They are quickly to abandon it. They are quickly to now change to the opposite of the spectrum, which is, I knew you, I now do not know you, I never knew that man. And so that's how they behave. And once you start seeing that behavior, it's not for you to internalize it. It's for you to understand the internal makeup of this person so that you're able to navigate that relationship with wisdom and with discernment. So let's look at it from the leader's perspective. A fearful, avoidant leader might genuinely want a close, open relationship with their team. They will emphasize on trust, on loyalty, on transparency, on vulnerability, but they're the same people who don't know how to handle these things that they value when it's presented to them. And so they'll find themselves in a place where they start testing their relationships to see if people actually deserve them in their lives. These are the people who say, I'm available, but you never find them there. They'll say that they value transparency, but they really don't that their words do not match their behavior. The minute you're transparent with them, they will use that information against you. That the people who say that they value trust, but they're always questioning if they can trust you. And so they keep testing you in that relationship to see if you actually deserve that trust. They are the ones who keep saying that they're always available to help. They delegate authority, but when now you guys start shining, they're the ones to come and start claiming back that authority. And so it becomes a situation where the employees are left to start wondering and reading the mood of this leader, because they really don't know where they stand. Today they are favoring you, but the minute they see this favor is doing an amazing thing in your life, they are quick to shut the door for you. And so you're always in a conflicted relationship with them as a subordinate, because you really don't know where you stand with them on a day-to-day. And so you're left consistently guessing, consistently wondering, and consistently testing the waters, because what these leaders become is unpredictable. The team cannot predict their behavior. The team cannot predict their availability. The team cannot predict their mood. And so they becomes, true to their attachment pattern, a fear-driven organization. Because when he says he values transparency, it's the same transparency that is being punished. When they say they value trust, it is they deem you having other relationships with other leaders as untrustworthy. So let's look at how it plays out, this dynamic within the workplace. So the first way it looks like, or the first way it presents, is emotional closeness followed by distance, which is classic fear-avoidant behavior pattern. And so this leader is the type of leader who's highly accessible. They are personally invested in your growth. And so the employees feel chosen. They feel that this is a place where they can fully express themselves. They feel that they belong here and that they are valued. But the minute something changes, the leader becomes cold. Now, what used to be informal, they want to be formal. Everything is on email, paper. They become very inaccessible. Suddenly, their doors are closed. And so the employees start wondering, what exactly did I do? But distance is a way that the leaders use to manage their own discomfort, because the more you're becoming close to them, the more they're feeling vulnerable. And so they start creating a distance so that they're able to manage their nervous system that is feeling very dysregulated in that environment. So again, it's for you to understand that it's not anything that you have done. It's just a way in which they reclaim back their control that they feel they're losing in this relationship because of the pull and push dynamic that is occurring. The second way it presents this behavior in the workplace is where a leader invites honesty and then they punish that honesty. And so they might say that, I want you to challenge me. And when the employee gives valuable feedback or constructive feedback to the leader suddenly becomes defensive, and this employee loses access, loses opportunities. The door is just completely shut on them. And so the team learns that, honesty is truthful in policy, in theory, but it is not practical in this organization, because every time anybody is honest, there will be a payback and there's going to be retaliation for that honesty. So their words never match their behavior. They might say something, but their behavior contradicts what they're saying. They are not aware in what they're doing, because again, it goes back to their sense of control, that they need to be in control of that dynamic. And by them withdrawing, whether emotionally or physically, it is their way for them to preserve and protect themselves from this fear that is overriding now this relationship, where honesty is very needed in relationship. Honesty is required for a relationship to thrive. But the minute you're honest with them, they don't want that. Actually, they didn't want honesty. They wanted something else, but not honesty. So once you see your boss behaving this way, please don't judge. Please don't pass judgment to them. Understand where they're coming from and ask God for wisdom for you to be able to navigate that dynamic. Another way this behavior shows up is through loyalty testing. A leader may interpret normal organizational behavior as threatening behavior, and so an employee considering another role automatically is interpreted as disloyalty. When they see you forming relationships with other senior managers, other leaders, immediately to them, they interpret that as you're being disloyal to them. And so they will continually test you, to prove allegiances to them through throwing so many hoops and curves for you to show that you're actually loyal, because they want you to be loyal to them, but they don't trust you to be loyal. So it becomes a very confusing, interesting dynamic that is just very toxic in nature, because now you, instead of doing your job Monday to Monday, you're proving that this person can trust you. You're showing a behavior and presenting a behavior to them so that you're there managing their safety so that they can trust you with information. Because essentially, when they see you behaving in normal organization dynamic, talking to other leaders, looking for opportunities for growth, they will start cutting access to information, starting cut access to opportunities. They will just put a hard stop to your career progression in that organization. The final way this behavior shows up is through favoritism and sudden rejection. You see, the fearful avoidant leader is very adept in forming inner circles. And within this inner circle, certain employees have access to trust, to access to information and opportunities. But a sudden disagreement, now that whole inner circle collapses. So the person who was a favorite yesterday becomes a threat today. And so the organization learns that this inner circle is even not predictable, because today I can be favored, tomorrow I'm suddenly rejected. I really don't know where I stand with this person. So people are continuously in a situation where they're competing for the emotional safety of this leader so that you're consistently in their good books. Because if you're in the bad books, your life in that organization will not be as pleasant as you hope. So again, you can see how this behavior pattern, because it's an insecure behavior pattern, creates a dynamic not only for the leader, not only for his team, but also organizational culture. And people don't feel safe. And so people Monday to Monday are wondering, how are we going to be behaving with this leader? Because their mood is unpredictable. Yesterday, they were in a good mood. Everybody got pay, promotions and pay and increase in their pays. Today they're in a bad mood, people are being let go without any cause. It just becomes a whole imbalanced system that it's not safe for the employees, for them to thrive and be productive and do what they've been hired to do to excel in that organization. The reason this unpredictability is very damaging is because while employees can adapt to different leadership styles, it's one thing for them to learn your leadership style. It's another thing for them to start learning how to read your mood. So if today honesty is valued, the next day honesty is punished. They don't know if honesty is something that is upheld within that organization. And so what happens when people are unsure of things? They won't participate in it, because when they have been honest, they have seen the consequences of that behavior. And so they are not sure, or the consequences of that behavior is not predictable across the board for a long time. The pattern is that this behavior is inconsistent. The consequences of our behavior are consistently inconsistent, in that today initiatives are celebrated, the next day you're being told that you overstepped. Today your ideas are, appreciated, the next day you're being told you need to learn how to manage upwards your leaders. Today, when you're being honest, it's appreciated. The next day, you're being called to a HR hearing because it's insubordination. So people start wondering, instead of doing their job, they're there learning your moods. They're there learning how to live in this dynamic. They're asking themselves, are we safe? Is honesty appreciated? Is it okay to be transparent? Is there going to be a reward if we're going to raise this concern, or should I just keep quiet and suffer till the end? And the Bible gives us a good example of this, where in Matthew 5:37, it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. This principle also talks about relational consistency. Let your words match your action. Don't say yes, but inside you're meaning no. So don't say, yes, I value honesty, but deep down you don't value honesty. Honesty is just a means to an end for you. Don't say you value transparency, and when people start asking questions about integrity in the workplace, you start becoming offended and defensive, and then you start punishing the team who raised this concern by, cutting access and just making their lives a living hell. So let your yes be yes, and let your no be no. That is the mark of integrity for a leader, because you build trust through consistent behavior that matches your action. Trust is not built on a broken credibility. Credibility is the fundamental thing that trust thrives on. So if you're not credible with your words, where you say yes where you say you're going to do something, but you don't do that, then the organization or your team learns that this is not someone who we can actually depend on. This is someone who's wishy-washy. Today they are this way, tomorrow they can be another way. And so it fractures the very essential thing that is needed for teams to be productive, which is trust, which is integrity, which is a safe space for them to be able to be productive, to thrive, to share their ideas, to fully participate in the organization and be part of something great. You curtail that when they cannot rely on you to consistently demonstrate a matched behavior to matched actions. There are very many strengths that a fearful avoidant person has. In this series, I've talked about us not pathologizing things and demonizing people because of the attachment patterns that they have. A lot of people within the workplace are not even self-aware that these are the behaviors they demonstrate. So the goal is for us to be edified, for there to be entrance of light, and for you to be able to see these patterns and put a stop to the negative patterns that don't help you thrive, because God wants us to move towards security. So the strengths within a fearful avoidant attachment can look like being highly perceptive. They care about trust. They are very sensitive to the dynamics within the relationships that they have. They're very capable of deep loyalty, and they demand it from the people that surround them. They're also very adaptable, and they're good at recognizing risk, and they're emotionally aware. And the goal is not to remove discernment, but it's to ensure that fear is not what is speaking in your relationship. It is to ensure that you're not becoming hypervigilant. And one of the ways you do that is to ensure that trust is growing progressively. There's something that I'm learning called don't go ahead of grace. Learn to pace your relationships, and that's how you start moving towards secure attachment. Wherever you'll be with human beings, these dynamics will always be there. You'll find people with fearful avoidant. You'll find people who are avoidant. You'll find people who are anxious. But if you start noticing your patterns, know that these are the things that trigger me. So how do I start moving towards a secure attachment? One of the things is to allow trust to grow gradually. And the way you do that is through observation. Don't be quick to start attaching to people quickly. Your desire wants you to form bonds quickly. There is nothing wrong with that. But the thing you miss out when you do that is you don't give this person time to prove their character to you. And so if I meet you today and already I'm claiming that we are good friends, already I'm claiming that you're the best employee, I've not given this relationship enough time for me to be consistently a good judge of your character and say, you present in a certain way, but in reality, that's not who you are. That the true person who you are is someone who's not dependable or someone who's dependable. So don't rush ahead of grace. Learn to trust, but learn to trust gradually. And this is what will help you not have fear and become hypervigilant, where you're not going to be monitoring people's tone, people's behavior, people's facial expressions, but you'll allow things to unfold naturally as you're relating with this person, so that you're able to not only observe, but trust your observations and feel safe within the observations that you're seeing. The second way you move to security is ensuring that you're separating your present evidence from your past expectations. The thing with these attachment styles that is important for us to know is that they were a protective measure for us to be able to engage in relationships. So this is something that benefited you at a certain point, but it doesn't benefit you right now. That is a generational pattern we see even with generational families, in that you formed a pattern or you formed a behavior that was essential for your protection and your safety in a certain situation, but it doesn't aid you in your current situation. So if you find yourself in a situation where your nervous system is saying danger, 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 ask yourself, what is my reference point for what I am feeling? Am I actually making a judgment call based on what my current evidence, or am I leaning on my past reference point of something that happened previously? Because the body keeps score, and so you have trained your body to, when they encounter a certain environment, it quickly makes judgment that this is safe or unsafe based on the patterns that you have been feeding it, based on the evidence that you have been encountering and forming within yourself. So sometimes we prematurely judge a situation and we say it's unsafe when it's just uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is not the same as unsafe. So when you encounter a situation, ask yourself, is this evidence warranting how I'm behaving, or am I behaving based on a previous past reference point that I'm leveraging on? The other way that you can move towards a secure attachment style is to stay present during conflict. conflict has a tendency to make someone with a fearful avoidant attachment style feel very vulnerable. And when they're in that situation where there is conflict or discomfort, the tendency is to run away. For you to move to safety, resist the urge of disappearing. You can ask for space, and it can sound like, I know what we're going through. Can we pack it for right now? But I'm interested in picking up this conversation tomorrow, because space helps you emotionally regulate. Space helps you calm down and reflect. And actually, now you can create different narratives to what you're experiencing that gives you a new body of evidence that your body can rely on. So when there is conflict, stay present in the conflict. Don't run away, don't shut down, don't withdraw, don't ignore, don't become passive aggressive. Ask for space and resume the conversation when you calm, when you have told yourself that this is not a make or break situation. It's just a normal human experience that people have when they're having a relationship. If you're a leader, learn how to become predictable. And this means setting clear expectations, being clear in how you're giving directions, setting boundaries, and also explaining changes so that people are on board in what you are giving them to do. So don't be the type of person who weaponizes vulnerability and disagreements. Don't be the type of person where the employees are tasked day in, day out to start judging your moods and emotionally investing in things they should not be investing, such as your temperament, instead of doing the work they have been hired. Also learn to make disagreements safe. Allow people to come and disagree with you, knowing that you don't need to take it personally. If somebody comes and says that they don't like your idea, or they feel that there's a different direction the organization can take, adopt the mindset of curiosity. Listen with an open mind. And it is difficult because this is a new training that you're teaching your body. So initially it might be difficult, but keep at it. And if you fail, just apologize, come back to the table and say, guys, I'm sorry. Actually, I hear you. Let's look at this idea that you have presented and see how it can benefit everybody. Don't shut things down. So make yourself a safe space. And one of the ways you do that is ensuring that you're predictable, ensuring that you're consistently matching your words with your actions. That's how you build your credibility with the team. That's how you ensure that they see you as someone they can trust. If they're sharing vulnerable information about you, don't pack it somewhere so that you can weaponize it at a certain opportune time with this individual. Keep things safe. The Bible tells you to just put a guardrail on your mouth. Be that confident that people can actually trust with very pertinent information that may affect them negatively in terms of their reputation or their status within that organization. Don't use things to get an upper echelon above other people. So I pray that if you have been able to identify certain behavioral patterns that match with this attachment pattern, this is not a disgrace to you. Again, God brings light in the places of darkness. You might have been in darkness in how your behavior affects people. So I pray that you will take this content, meditate upon it, and ask the Holy Spirit to give you wisdom to start healing those parts of you that formed this attachment pattern because you were in a situation where there was unpredictability, instability. And once you're able to start walking the journey with God, I can assure you that your life is going to be transformed. You will be that leader who people never used to trust, but now they start seeing you as a trustworthy leader because you apologize, you engage, you have created a safe space. They can trust you with information where that information is not used against them, that you don't withdraw or distance, you don't favor others and then tomorrow you reject them. They're not there learning your moods and your temperament because they're not your spouse. They're not, nobody should even be in that position to start learning your temperament and your moods. So as an employee, you're also able to relate better with your colleagues, better with your clients, and better with your suppliers so that you're having a good time in the office, because God also wants us to enjoy. It's not for us to just toil endlessly. In fact, even toil is not something that He advocates for, but for us to enjoy what we do, because the more you start enjoying the relationships that God has given you to steward and enjoy, the more you'll reap more benefits. But it starts with understanding yourself before you start understanding other people. Have a blessed week.